The night was cold and wet, rain falling like tiny knives from the sky. Jack pulled his coat tighter as he walked down the dark alley behind his small repair shop. Trash bins lined the walls, and the only light came from a flickering street lamp. He just wanted to lock up and get home. Then he heard it. A soft sound, almost lost in the wind. A cry. He stopped. At first he thought it was a cat or some broken pipe whining. But then he heard it again. Tiny, weak, scared. A child. Jack turned around slowly, eyes scanning the dark. His boots splashed in a shallow puddle as he moved toward the sound. Behind a large metal bin, he saw something move. A small figure. He crouched down. "Hey, you okay?" he asked gently. The figure didn't answer. Jack reached into his pocket and turned on a small flashlight. The beam landed on a little girl curled up in a ball, hugging her knees. Her skin had a faint bluish glow. She wasn't human, alien, but still just a child. Her white hair was tangled and dirty. She wore thin cloth scraps that couldn't protect her from the cold. Her large eyes blinked slowly, filled with fear. "Don't be scared," Jack whispered. "I won't hurt you." The girl didn't move. She just stared at him, shivering. Her lips were purple. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Jack removed his coat and gently wrapped it around her. She flinched but didn't run. "Where's your family?" he asked. She didn't speak. He knelt beside her. "My name is Jack. I have food. I have warmth. You don't have to stay out here." Finally, in a soft voice, she spoke. "Please, don't send me back." Jack's heart tightened. "I won't," he said firmly. "Come on." She hesitated, then slowly reached for his hand. Her fingers were ice cold. Jack carried her back to his small home behind the shop. It wasn't much, just a couch, a small heater, and a few leftover meals, but it was warm and dry. He gave her a blanket and set a bowl of hot soup in front of her. She looked at it with wide eyes but didn't touch it. "It's okay," he said, sitting across from her. "It's safe." She sniffed the soup, then took a tiny sip, then another. Soon, she was eating like she hadn't eaten in days. Jack watched her quietly. She was just a child, scared, alone, and someone had hurt her. "What's your name?" he asked. She stopped eating. "Laika," she whispered. "That's a nice name." She didn't smile. She looked around the small room like she expected someone to burst in. "Are you running from someone?" he asked. Laika looked down and nodded slowly. Jack didn't push, not yet, but he knew something was very wrong. He got up and handed her a towel. "You can clean up a bit. The bathroom's over there. I'll find you something warm to wear." She walked slowly to the door, her bare feet silent on the floor. Jack noticed bruises on her arms, old ones, faded but still there. When she returned, her hair was wet, but her eyes looked clearer. She sat on the couch, hugging the blanket tightly. "Can I stay here for the night?" she asked softly. Jack nodded. "Of course, as long as you need." For the first time, Laika's eyes glistened, not from fear, but from something else. Hope. Morning sunlight peeked through the window, soft and golden. Jack rubbed his tired eyes and walked into the living room, expecting to find an empty couch. Part of him thought Laika might have run away during the night, but she was still there, wrapped in a blanket, sitting silently with wide eyes, watching the door like it might open at any second. Her silver blue hair was dry now, falling gently around her small shoulders. She looked cleaner, but still frightened. Jack didn't want to scare her, so he sat down quietly on the chair across from her. "Sleep okay?" he asked. Laika nodded once, then looked down at her hands. "I made something," Jack said, motioning toward the kitchen. "It's not fancy, just toast and eggs. You hungry?" She looked up slowly. "Can I eat it?" "Of course. You don't have to ask," he smiled. She stood, barefoot again, and walked into the small kitchen like a quiet ghost. Jack placed a plate in front of her and poured a glass of warm water. She ate slowly this time, with more care, but her eyes never left the window. "Laika," Jack said softly, "do you want to tell me where you came from?" She froze. The fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "I won't tell anyone," he added, "but maybe I can help." Leica looked up. Her lips trembled for a moment. Then she whispered, "They took my mother." Jack leaned in. "Who?" "The men in the red armor, from the sky base. They came to our village. My mother tried to hide me, but I saw them take her. I ran." Jack felt his jaw tighten. The sky base was known for shady things, a mix of mercenaries, slave traders, and corrupt officials, not a place for children. "How long ago was that?" he asked. 3 nights, she said. "I slept in the trash. I didn't know where to go. I saw your shop and smelled food." "You're very brave," Jack said, meaning it. "And smart, too." Leica didn't smile. "They'll come looking." Jack stood and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "If they come here, they won't get you. I promise." That was when something changed in her eyes, a tiny flicker of trust. She looked up at him and said, "Why are you helping me? I'm not even your kind." Jack sat down beside her. "Because no child should be left in the rain like that. It doesn't matter where you're from." Leica stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Most humans just look away." Jack gave a small laugh. "Then maybe I'm not like most." The room went quiet. Then slowly, Leica reached into the folds of her blanket and pulled something out. A small torn fabric doll. Its head was barely attached, one eye missing. "My mom made this for me," she said, "when I was little." Jack took it gently and examined it. Despite the damage, it was stitched with care. "We'll fix her up," he said, "together." Leica blinked, and for the first time, something soft crossed her face. A smile. Just a small one, but real. That night, Jack gave her a small mattress beside his own bed. Leica fell asleep, clutching the repaired doll. Jack sat up a little longer, thinking. Something told him this wasn't over. Someone out there was still looking for her, and now, she was under his roof. The wind howled against the small cabin as night settled once more, but inside Jack's home, everything was calm. The heater hummed softly. Leica was asleep, curled on her mattress near the fireplace, her repaired doll pressed against her chest. For the first time since Jack found her, she looked at peace. Jack stood by the window, arms crossed, staring into the dark. He didn't trust the silence. Something felt off, too quiet, too still. Then, he heard it. Crunch. The unmistakable sound of footsteps outside, moving slowly through the gravel and dry leaves. Jack didn't move. He listened again. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. His heart beat harder. He turned off the lamp and reached for the tool wrench he kept under the sink. Not much for a weapon, but it was heavy enough to make someone think twice. Leica stirred. "Jack?" "Shh," he whispered. "Stay down." She blinked, sitting up. "Is it them?" He didn't answer. He moved to the door silently, placed his hand on the knob, then waited. Another sound. A quiet knock. Not polite, not soft. Like someone testing the door. Jack opened it fast, wrench raised, and froze. A woman stood there, barefoot, shaking, mud on her arms and face. Her clothes were torn, her long silver-white hair stuck to her cheeks. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Leica?" she gasped. "Is she here?" Jack blinked in shock. "Who are you?" But behind him, a small voice called out, "Mom?" The woman pushed past Jack, nearly falling inside. Leica jumped up, ran forward, and the two of them fell to the floor, hugging tightly. Jack lowered the wrench, confused and stunned. The woman sobbed into her daughter's hair. "I looked everywhere. I followed your trail. I thought I lost you." Leica cried too. "I thought you were gone." They held each other for what felt like forever. Finally, the woman looked up at Jack. Her eyes were fierce but tired. "Doe, you took her?" "I found her in the alley," Jack replied. "She was freezing and starving." The woman stared at him, breathing hard. "You didn't hurt her?" "No, I gave her food, shelter, that's all." She kept staring, then slowly nodded. Her shoulders dropped. "I'm sorry, I didn't know if she was safe." Jack pulled a chair and handed her a glass of water. "Who are you?" The woman held her daughter close. My name is Anera. I'm Laika's mother. We were running from the Red Guard. I tried to lead them away so she could escape. She said you were taken, Jack said quietly. Anera nodded. They caught me, beat me, thought I'd tell them where she went. I didn't. I escaped again, but I couldn't leave her in the streets. Jack looked at them, two broken souls holding each other like they were the only thing left in the galaxy. He had questions, many, but for now he just said, "You're safe here, both of you." Anera looked at him, something unreadable in her eyes. Gratitude and fear. "You don't even know us," she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Jack didn't know how to answer, so he just said, "Because no one else did." That night, Jack didn't sleep. Because outside the cabin, the forest wasn't quiet anymore. Something was watching, and it hadn't come for him, it had come for them. Morning came, but no one truly rested. Jack brewed hot tea while Anera sat on the floor with Laika still clinging to her. Her arms were wrapped tightly around the girl, like she feared letting go again. Jack didn't ask questions right away. He waited. He placed a warm cup in front of her. She nodded, eyes red. "Thank you. Again." Jack sat across from her, keeping his voice calm. "I don't want to scare you, but if someone's after you, after both of you, I need to understand why." Anera held the cup without drinking. "My home wasn't far," she began softly. "A farming colony, mostly women and children. My husband died in a raid 2 winters ago. After that, we kept our heads down." Her voice cracked. "But then the Red Guard came. They said they were searching for undesirable bloodlines. They wanted young ones for their breeding labs and older ones for slave labor." Jack clenched his jaw. "And no one stopped them?" Anera shook her head. "Our leaders obeyed. They traded girls for peace." Jack stared at her, stunned. "They gave their own people away?" "They called it survival," she whispered bitterly. "They came for Laika. I told them she was sick, unfit. I hid her under the floor. But they took me instead. Said I'd pay with my body or my silence." Laika looked up at her mother, eyes wide. "They locked me in a cargo hold," Anera continued. 3 days, no light, no food. I escaped when the guards argued. I stabbed one and ran. I didn't know where Laika had gone, but I followed the smell of garbage, hoping she might have gone to the lower alleys. She wiped a tear with the back of her dirty hand. "I was ready to die out there. Then I saw your light." Jack swallowed hard. "You were right to run." Anera looked up. "But where do we go now? We can't stay. The Red Guard doesn't forget." Jack leaned forward. "You're not running anymore. Not alone." Anera shook her head. We can't bring trouble to your doorstep." Jack didn't flinch. "Too late. You're already here. And if they come for you, they'll have to go through me." Her lip trembled. "You don't know what they'll do." "Maybe not," he said. "But I know what I'll do." Anera stared at him like she didn't believe such kindness was real. Her voice softened. "Why would a human help aliens like us?" Jack met her eyes. "Because I've been alone too, and I know what it feels like to be left behind." Silence filled the room for a long moment. Laika crawled into her mother's lap and whispered, "He gave me food, Mama. He fixed my doll." Anera smiled gently and kissed the top of her daughter's head. Jack stood. "You both need rest. There's clean water out back. I'll see if I can find better clothes for you." Anera hesitated, then nodded. "Jack," she said as he turned, "I owe you more than I can ever repay." He paused. "You don't owe me anything." But he didn't see the way she looked at him after he left the room. There was more than fear in her eyes now. There was warmth, and the first tiny spark of something she had buried long ago. Trust. For 3 days, peace held. Anera washed her clothes in the back stream. Laika drew pictures in the dirt outside. Jack added another lock to the front door. He kept things quiet, didn't go into town. He thought maybe, just maybe, they were safe. But word travels fast on small planets. And not everyone liked the idea of a human living with runaway aliens. It started with whispers. Two old villagers stopped talking when Jack walked into the shop. A merchant raised prices on bread the moment she saw Anera beside him. Someone threw a rotten fruit near Laika's feet when she passed the square. Jack noticed it all. He stayed calm, but his patience was starting to wear thin. That evening, Jack came home to find a message scratched on his door. Traitor. Anera stood beside it, her face pale. She held Laika behind her like a shield. Jack's fists clenched. Who did this? Anera shook her head. Don't. If you fight them, it will only make things worse. They're already making it worse, he said, wiping the message away with a rag. And you didn't do anything wrong. But I exist, she whispered. To them, that's enough. Inside, Laika tried to stay cheerful. She played with the repaired doll, humming to herself softly. Jack watched her for a moment. She doesn't know what it means, he said. That word on the door. Anera sat down slowly. She will soon. Jack looked at her, truly looked. Tired eyes, thin arms, a woman who had fought too many battles alone. You can leave if you want, he said carefully. I won't stop you, but I'll never ask you to. Anera stared at him surprised. You'd still help us, even if the whole town turns against you? I didn't help you to be popular. That made her laugh, just a little. Later that night, they heard a knock on the door. Jack reached for his wrench, but paused when he heard the voice. Jack, it's me, Mira, he opened the door slowly. Mira was an old woman from the edge of town, kind eyes and a back bent from years of farming. She held out a small wrapped bundle. For the girl, she said. Bread and honey. I heard things. Not everyone believes them. Jack smiled softly. Thank you. She glanced at the window where Laika peeked through the curtain. She looks just like any other child, Mira whispered. Scared. Alone. She's safe now, Jack said. Mira nodded. Keep her safe, and her mother too. Not everyone had turned against them. Not yet. But that night, Jack found something else behind his workshop. A burned rag, still smoking. A warning. And this time, it wasn't just words. Inside, Anera sat with Laika wrapped in her arms. The girl had fallen asleep. But Anera wasn't tired. She was watching Jack through the window. She saw how he stood still, staring at the smoking cloth. And in her heart, she knew. This man had chosen their side, even if it cost him everything. The morning air was heavy. Jack stepped outside, wiping grease from his hands. He'd been fixing an old solar panel behind the cabin when he heard it. Distant engine hums, steady and sharp, getting closer. Not the usual cargo trucks. Military patrol. His heart dropped. He looked toward the trees. Birds scattered. Then he saw them. 3 armored figures in red and black stepped out from the forest edge, rifles slung over their backs, visors glowing faint blue. Red Guard. Laika was playing with stones near the stream. Anera was hanging wet clothes to dry. Jack didn't shout. He walked quickly, calmly toward the girl. Laika, he said in a firm voice, come inside. She looked up, confused, but obeyed. Anera turned too, and froze when she saw the soldiers. Her body tensed like a wild animal cornered. The tallest guard stepped forward. His voice was cold. We received a report. 2 fugitives from Sector 7A, female adult, 1 child. Jack stood between them and the door. They're not fugitives, he said. They're my guests. The second guard tilted his helmet. You sheltering aliens now, human? Jack didn't move. This is my property. You don't have a warrant. The third guard laughed. You think we need one? Inside, Laika peeked through the curtain, trembling. Anera stood behind her, fists clenched, breathing fast. The lead guard stepped closer. We'll ask one more time. Hand them over, or we take all 3. Jack stared straight into his visor. You'll have to get through me first. A long silence. Wind rustled the grass. Then a voice broke it. Stop! Everyone turned. Mira stood near the road, holding a wooden staff. Behind her came 2 more villagers, then another, then 5 more. Old men, workers, mothers with baskets, all standing behind Jack. The lead guard looked around, annoyed. This doesn't concern you. It does now, Mira said. Haven't hurt anyone. You want to take someone? You'll have to drag all of us. The guards looked at each other. They weren't ready for a fight. Not yet. The leader leaned close to Jack. This isn't over. Then they turned and left, disappearing into the trees. Jack let out a breath. Inside, Anera collapsed to her knees. Laika hugged her mother tight. They were going to take us again, weren't they? Jack entered, closing the door behind him. Not while I'm here. Anera looked up at him. Her voice was quiet, shaking. You didn't have to stand in front of them. Yes, Jack said, kneeling beside her. I did. She touched his hand. I don't understand you, she whispered. Your kind isn't like this. Jack met her eyes. Maybe I'm not like the rest. For the first time, Anera didn't argue. She just nodded and held his hand tighter. That night, the cabin stayed quiet, but not because the danger was gone, because everyone inside knew. The real fight had just begun. The next morning felt different. The wind was still cool, the sun gentle, but the silence was no longer cold. It felt like a held breath, waiting to be released. Anera stood on the porch, holding a steaming cup of tea Jack made for her. Laika played in the dirt, drawing circles with a stick. Jack sat nearby, fixing a broken drone part. None of them spoke much. They were still shaken, but something had changed. Later that day, a soft knock came at the door. Jack opened it and paused. It was the baker's boy, no older than 13, thin as a stick. He held out a paper bag with both hands and spoke quickly, like he was afraid. My mom says, this is for the little girl. Jack took it gently. Warm rolls, still fresh. Thank you. The boy nodded once and ran off down the road. Inside the bag was also a small note. She looked hungry. Jack handed one of the rolls to Laika, who blinked in surprise. For me? Seems like someone likes you, he smiled. That afternoon, an old man passed by with a cart of hay. He tipped his hat to Jack. Storm coming, might want to cover the windows. Jack nodded. Thanks. The man paused. They staying? Yes. The man looked at the cabin, then at Anera, who was washing clothes silently in the yard. He didn't say more, just nodded once and walked on. Later that evening, Mira came again. She brought 2 wool shawls, rough but warm. For the nights, she said, and for the girl, I brought this. She handed Laika a small stuffed animal, hand-stitched, with button eyes and crooked legs. Laika's face lit up. Mira, Anera began, voice cracking. We don't deserve this. Mira looked her in the eye. Maybe not. Maybe none of us do. But that never stopped Jack, did it? Jack chuckled. I don't know when I became the local example. You became it the moment you opened your door, Mira smiled. After she left, Anera sat beside Jack as Laika played with both her toys, laughing for the first time in days. I thought they hated us, Anera said. Some did, Jack replied. Some still might, but maybe they're learning. Anera looked at him. Her voice was quiet. Because of you. He looked at her hands, still bruised, still healing. No, he said, because they saw Laika smile. She stared at him. That night, while Jack fixed the old lights outside, Anera brought him a small plate of food. It wasn't much, boiled roots and fried grain, but it was warm, and it was made by her hands. He looked at her. I wanted to cook for once, she said softly. You've done too much. He took a bite. Tastes good. Anera sat beside him. They might come back, the guards. I know. We should leave. He looked at her, then shook his head. You finally have neighbors who see you as more than a number. You're not running again. She stared into the darkness. Then she whispered something he didn't expect. Laika calls you Papa when she thinks I'm not listening. Jack froze. She sees you like that, Anera added. He looked down at his hands. I don't know how to be a father. You already are, she said. And that night, for the first time, Anera didn't sleep in the corner of the cabin. She slept near the fire. Beside Jack. Rain tapped gently against the cabin windows. Inside, the fire crackled, casting warm light across the wooden floor. Jack sat near the hearth, rubbing grease off his fingers with an old cloth. He'd just finished repairing the backup battery unit. Again, it was old tech, but it still worked like most things in his home. Across the room, Anera stood quietly, watching the flames. Laika had already gone to bed, tucked in with her stuffed toy and the little patch blanket Mira had gifted her. She was snoring softly, one tiny hand resting over her doll. Jack looked up as Anera walked over with 2 steaming cups. She handed him one. "Tea," she said with a soft smile. "Not as good as yours." He took it with a nod. "Still warm, that's all that matters." They sat together in silence, side by side on the wooden bench. The fire popped once, and outside thunder rolled far in the distance. "I never liked storms," Anera said quietly. Jack glanced at her. "Too many memories?" She nodded. "We used to hide in the root cellar back home. Every time the sky roared, Laika would scream. I'd hold her all night, singing until she fell asleep." She stared into the fire, her voice softer now. "She doesn't scream anymore." "That's because she feels safe now," Jack said. Anera looked at him. "You," she whispered, "made her feel safe." Jack shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't do much. You gave her food when she was starving. You gave her shelter when she had no one. You faced the Red Guard when everyone else looked away." He opened his mouth to speak, but she wasn't finished. "She calls you Papa in her sleep," Anera continued. "She clings to your shirt when you walk too far. She laughs again, only when you're near." Jack looked down at his hands. "She's a good kid," he said. "She deserves better than this world gave her." Anera turned toward him, her voice trembling now. "And what about me, Jack?" He met her eyes slowly. "I'm tired of running, tired of being afraid. Every day I keep waiting for someone to knock down your door and drag us away, but somehow, when I see you in the morning just pouring tea and fixing broken things..." She paused. "I feel like I've already found home." Jack didn't know what to say. His chest felt tight, like her words were squeezing something deep inside him. "I know I'm not human," she said. "I know I carry scars and fear and a child that isn't yours, but still, I need to ask." She placed her hand on his. "Would you ever consider keeping us? Not just for now, not just for shelter, but for real?" Jack stared at her. Her hand was warm, shaking a little, her voice so honest it made his throat ache. He took a slow breath, then nodded once. "I already have." Anera's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, not of fear, but of relief. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat there quietly as the storm passed outside. Later that night, as the fire dimmed and the rain faded, Laika rolled over in her sleep. She whispered one word with a smile on her lips. "Family." Days passed, but the memory of that night stayed fresh. Jack woke early now, not out of habit, but out of peace. Anera brewed the morning tea before he even opened his eyes. Laika helped him organize tools in the shed, humming a tune she'd made up herself. The cabin, once filled with silence, now had life. And laughter. Real, soft laughter. Anera had begun wearing her hair loose again. She smiled more. Her voice had grown lighter, and sometimes in quiet moments she would stand close to Jack, just close enough for their shoulders to touch. He never moved away. One afternoon, while Laika napped inside, Jack and Anera sat outside the cabin, watching clouds drift by. Anera held a piece of cloth she was stitching, something she hoped to turn into a proper dress for Laika. Jack leaned back in his chair, arms behind his head. "Didn't think I'd end up building a life like this," he said. "With aliens?" she teased gently. He chuckled. "With purpose." She looked at him. Their eyes met. Longer this time. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "Can I ask something strange?" "Go ahead." "If I kiss you, does that make us married by your world's customs?" Jack blinked. His heart jumped unexpectedly. "Not exactly," he replied, "but it'd mean something." She looked away, blushing. "On mine, it would mean everything." He turned to face her. "Then maybe you should." She hesitated, then leaned in. Their lips met softly, gently, and in that kiss, everything else melted. The fear, the loneliness, the pain. Just two people, and the silence between them finally gone. But the moment shattered too quickly. A sharp crack in the woods. Jack pulled back instantly, hand already reaching for the wrench strapped to his belt. Anera stood up fast. That wasn't wind. They both stared into the trees. Nothing moved, but something felt wrong. The birds had gone quiet. Jack Moe sped toward the cabin door, opened it quickly. "Leica, sweetheart, wake up." The girl rubbed her eyes. "What's wrong?" "Get your boots. Stay close to your mom." Anera wrapped her arms around Leica, holding her tightly. Jack stepped outside again, eyes scanning the tree line. The feeling in his gut was sharp, like a needle twisting. He'd felt it before. Someone was watching. The next morning they found it. A red guard emblem burned into a tree near the stream. A message. A warning. They were being hunted again. That evening, the house was quiet again. The warmth of that kiss still lingered, but so did the fear. It was all about to be taken away. Anera sat beside Jack on the floor. Leica lay between them, already asleep. "I shouldn't have kissed you," she said softly. Jack looked at her, confused. "Why?" "Because now I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." "You won't," he said firmly. "You can't promise that." "No," Jack admitted, "but I can fight for it. For both of you." Anera looked down at his hands, scarred, rough, protective. She placed her hand in his. Then, in a voice smaller than before, she whispered, "I'm scared." Jack gave a small smile. "Me too." They sat there in silence, the fire slowly dying down as the shadows outside the windows grew deeper. Because now, the Red Guard wasn't just hunting fugitives, they were coming to tear apart a family. The morning sun rose red. Jack stood outside the cabin, eyes locked on the smoke in the distance. The Red Guard was coming. There were no doubts now. They weren't sneaking anymore. They wanted fear, intimidation. Anera stood behind him, holding Leica tight in her arms. "They'll hurt you," she whispered. "They'll kill us." Jack turned around. "Not if I speak first." "But Jack..." "No," he said, voice calm. "This time, we don't hide. We don't run." He walked down the dirt path toward the village square. The smoke grew closer. Anera hesitated, then followed. Others joined them. Mira, the old farmer, the baker's boy, the mechanic from the south edge. More and more faces, some afraid, some uncertain, but all watching. At the center of the square, the Red Guard transport landed with a hiss of steam. 4 soldiers stepped out, weapons slung, visors cold. The same leader as before approached with slow, heavy steps. "Human," he growled, "we gave you a warning." Jack didn't step back. I heard it, and I ignored it. The soldier's hand hovered near his rifle. "Give them up. Now." Jack's voice rose, not loud but steady. "No." Gasps spread through the crowd. The soldier's visor gleamed. "Then you choose death?" "I choose family." The soldier laughed. "Family? With an alien? With a child that's not yours?" Jack stepped forward. "Yes, with Anera. With Leica. They are mine now. They are home." Anera covered her mouth, eyes wide. "She asked me to keep them," Jack continued. "Not just in the shadows, not in fear, but forever." He turned to the crowd. "I say yes, I say it here, in front of everyone." Mira stepped forward beside him. "Then we stand with you." One by one, the villagers joined her. Some held tools, some carried nothing, but they stood, not behind Jack, not beside the Red Guard, but around the family he had chosen. The soldier snarled, "This is a mistake." "No," Anera said, stepping forward at last. "The mistake was thinking we were still alone." The Red Guard hesitated. Too many people, too many eyes, and no one was afraid anymore. After a long, tense moment, the soldiers turned. No fight, no shots, just silence and retreat. As they boarded their transport, the leader stopped. He looked back at Jack. She will never be human. Jack's answer came without delay. Good, she's better. Later, as the dust settled, Jack walked with Anera and Laika back to the cabin. Laika held his hand tightly. Are we safe now? Jack looked down at her, then at Anera, who stood beside him, no longer shaking. Yes, he said, we're home. That evening, the villagers brought food, music, old decorations from storage. It wasn't official, not by law, but in every way that mattered, it was a wedding. Anera wore a dress made from stitched blankets and donated cloth. Laika ran through the yard laughing, throwing flower petals made of paper scraps. And Jack stood in the center, hand in Anera's, as Mira tied a red ribbon around their wrists. For love, she said, for courage, for family, the people cheered. And for the first time in her life, Anera cried not from pain, but from joy. Because in a world that tried to break them, one human stood up and said yes. And that was enough to change everything.